It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in. It's Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. It is the first Saturday without a full slate of college football, but we have still plenty to talk about. An in-season tournament final here in town between the Lakers and the Pacers. Army-Navy later today in Foxborough, Massachusetts. I'm even going to throw some FCS playoffs at Alex White. See? Didn't prep you for it, but I actually have a play in an FCS game, so we'll get to that in a little bit. Alex White is here as well. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Saturday. As you mentioned, this Saturday looks a little different, but, I mean, look at the college basketball card we have today. It is insane. So I'm excited. It should be a lot of fun.
Should be a lot of fun indeed as we get rolling here on a Saturday. Let's dive in. Let's start with Army-Navy. 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific start for this one. Foxborough, Mass, the site. And Navy taking the money here. Down to 2.5. Army favored in this one. 28 the total. 19 in the last 20 of these matchups have gone under the total. Last year, they finally broke the streak. Took overtime to break the streak and finally get a game over between these two. Bounced around 28, 27.5, back to 28 on this total. Alex, now with threes gone, because I know you took a 3 earlier in the week with the midshipmen. Now it's probably nothing to do with this one at 2.5.
You are completely right. The over is a little tempting. Army's games have averaged 43 points this season and Navy's 41. But we know how these two play each other, so I'm going to stay away from that. But it was a take for me with the dog here at the 3 points. Navy has played a much tougher schedule, and they pitched 3 shutouts this year. The only time they really struggled was against the pass-heavy offenses, which I don't think Army possesses that sort of threat. So I feel pretty good with Navy plus 3. You're right, 2.5. Nothing there for me.
Again, 2.5 now. Neither team can go to a bowl despite getting to win number 6 for the winner today. Navy, as you said, defense has had their moments this year. They've also had their bad moments this year as well on the defensive side of the ball. Last time out, SMU is still scoring in that game. 59 put on Navy in that one. But, you know, these Army-Navy games are always grinded out. It's the same style as we already saw earlier in the year with Air Force as a humongous favorite against Army with basically the Commander-in-Chief trophy locked up. All it was, all right, just handle your business as a 20-plus point favorite, and they lost the game by 20, which started the spiral downward where Air Force didn't win another game the rest of the season. And for Army, look, it's a little bit of a different offense for the Black Knights than we've seen. This is not the pure option offense we've saw forever at all these service academies. Jeff Monken saying in the offseason just because of the new rules, it's harder to do crackback blocks now in college football, player safety reasons for that, the transfer portal as well, hurting Army's ability in order to run that option. So they still have plenty of it in their offense. It's just not the same, hey, we're just going to grind you the whole way through and run the option on every single play.
You took the words right out of my mouth, too. Army with that huge upset over Air Force, and they didn't win another game. On the flip side, though, Army has won 3 in a row. Yes, so that does make me a little nervous here. It should be a good game. It's always a fun scene there, and I would like to make it to this game one time. That is on the bucket list. Yeah,
next year they're in FedEx Field, so I would not bother with that stadium being in it. But when they're in Baltimore again, they're in Philadelphia in a few years. Philadelphia is the place that this game should always be, right? Smack dab in the middle of West Point and Annapolis. But, hey, I'm not the one scheduling the games for this one. Real quick here on the FCS side, Alex, I know you probably don't have anything on this, but last night, Montana was a huge favorite. They needed overtime to survive the Paladins of Furman. So Furman with an easy cover. Didn't matter what number you got. There's 3 games today. Number 1 seed South Dakota State hosts Villanova. That's a 3-touchdown line. South Dakota State, just for reference of their dominance this year, the Jackrabbits were nearly $2 favorites at the beginning of the tournament to be the champions. So they should be a cakewalk according to those numbers. But 21-point favorites against Villanova. Deepest Villanova has been in the FCS playoffs in nearly 15 years. A battle of the Dakotas at South Dakota in Brookings today. South Dakota hosting North Dakota State. The Coyotes beat the Bison earlier in the year in the Fargo Dome, which is as we all know, a gigantic deal at that level. But North Dakota State's playing much better. By the way, Vermilion, South Dakota, Brookings is where South Dakota State is. Can't make that mistake too often. But the Coyotes are getting a whole touchdown now. Yeah. I'm actually going to take the Coyotes plus the 7 in this one, getting a whole touchdown against the team they beat earlier in the year. The Bison, again, North Dakota State, as we know, a power in the FCS ranks, Alex.
Hey, I don't mind it at all. I mean, that revenge factor might make me a little bit worried, but if they've already beat them, they know their opponent very well. So 7 with South Dakota. Very interesting.
And then the last one, what a horrible trip for Albany, going all the way across the country to the Kibbie Dome to take on Idaho today. Idaho, a 4.5-point favorite behind us. There is some 4 in the market, so if you like the Vandals, search for that 4, lay that. I have nothing on this one. That's a late night game, 10 o'clock Pacific time, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific time for that one. All right, let's shift over to the NBA. The Pacers and the Lakers tonight at T-Mobile. Indiana, of course, the upstart, undefeated in the in-season tournament, coming off back-to-back upsets this week. They took out the Celtics. They took out the Bucks in succession fashion. Alex, the Lakers, pure domination on Thursday night, a 44-point margin over the Pelicans. LeBron at 30 in less than 30 minutes of play. And, for the in-season tournament, Lakers, by the way, favored by 4, 243 to total. For what this in-season tournament was supposed to accomplish, the NBA got the matchup and look, I know they probably rather see Giannis or the Celtics or even the Knicks or whoever, but this is perfect for what this in-season tournament's supposed to be. You got the big brand, the veteran team. You got LeBron fully invested in this in-season tournament as well. And then you have the Pacers, a team that isn't ready to realistically compete for an NBA championship, but a team that is young, a team that is led by Tyrese Halliburton, everyone's getting to learn how good Halliburton is now, and a team that is caught lightning in a bottle. And now here they are with a chance to look at the NBA level. The Indiana Pacers have never won an NBA championship. They won an ABA championship, but that's obviously a whole different game. And they've only been in the NBA Finals one time. Reggie Miller and company lost to the Lakers when the Lakers started their three-peat at the beginning of the millennium. So, Alex, I have nothing on this game. I think the number's right. If you made me take a side here, I would lean to the favorite. I just think when push comes to shove, I think the experience that team has, this core won a title in the bubble. LeBron obviously is one of the 2 best players that's ever played the game. And I just like the Lakers to win this game. I'm not comfortable enough to lay the 4, though.
So much that you just mentioned, I completely agree with. This has been such a success for the NBA. I love it. I hope they continue to do it, which I assume they will. But really great for the Pacers to be in this spot. You mentioned on Thursday, because we were talking about the Bucks and the Pacers high total, and you said this is more of a end of the season. What am I trying to say here? So defensive battle between the two. We'll see more defense.
So just the piggyback on that real quick. No, I'm not going to touch the second game. Second game was a blowout. That game should have went over. The Pelicans just didn't show up.
Correct.
The first game, now, granted, we're talking about a total that was 258.5 points, which is asinine. How big of a total that is. Didn't get there. And quite frankly, a few more fouls I might have gotten there. But it did play for the majority of the game as more playoff.
That's what I was looking for.
Where defenses are going to be better. Possessions are going to be longer. And for this at 243, in theory, now I don't know how it will play, but in theory, it should play as a NBA Finals Game 6, Game 7, should play as that. Now, granted, I don't know if that will play like that. The Pacers don't play much defense. They are the second fastest pace in the NBA right now, but I'm not touching this total at 243. If anything, again, I would take it under, but I'm not going to touch it.
Right. So that is what kept me off that over, which I was looking at. But I agree with you on the side. I am on the Lakers. I have a money line parlay going. I had the Clippers, 76ers yesterday, and the Oilers. And then today I need the Lakers and the Bruins to complete my 5-team money line parlay. So rooting for the Lakers. I think LeBron can get it done. First in-season tournament. You know he will show up for this one as he has in the last few games. 30 points in the last one, 31 before that. We do have some NBA props here at the South
Yes,
Point.
we do.
That is a lot of fun if you want to play it that way as well.
I want to go to college hoops. We'll circle back with this. Vinny will be joining us in 10 minutes to get the whole scoop from behind the counter. There are 2 games starting in 20 minutes that I want to hit, and then we'll take our first break. Tulane, Mississippi State for this one. This is a neutral site game in Atlanta today. The Wave are 8-point dogs behind us. It looks like Mississippi State just got hit a little bit again after it dipped to 7.5. So back to 8 behind us. Touched 9 at one point this morning. You can get this in college basketball where you get these numbers bouncing all over the place. Overnight was 8. High is 9. Back to 8 now. As low as 7. The whole shebang on this one. I have no opinion on this game. Mississippi State has had their moments this year. Totals 150, better on offense than they have been the last few years. So this is a stay off, but this is a game at least wanted to touch on since it's starting in the next 20 minutes.
Now, I know this next game at 8:30, you do have a play on.
Yeah, old Big East rivals, no longer in the same conference. Syracuse goes to D.C. to take on Georgetown. Both teams with new coaches this year. Of course, Ed Cooley goes from Providence's alma mater down to D.C. to take over Georgetown. Adrian Autry, of course, replacing the Hall of Famer Jim Boeheim. Syracuse is now playing man-to-man defense, which, as we know, 30-plus years, 40-plus years of Boeheim in the 2-3 zone, that's no longer the case. There were some games in Hawaii where it looked like a team that never played man-to-man. And now, look, in that tournament, they drew Tennessee and Gonzaga, who are both top 10 Ken Pom teams. I don't know if Tennessee's that good, but they are a legitimate top 25 team. Gonzaga, we always know, excellent on offense, if not anything else. Now they play Georgetown in D.C., the Hoyas are 5-3. This is going to be a long turn here for Ed Cooley. Their wins are against Lemoyne, 357th in Ken Pom. Mount St. Mary's by 11, 257. American U, they beat them in overtime. They're 300 in Ken Pom. 262 Jackson State, they beat by 7. 260 Merrimack, they beat by 2. Their losses, they lost to Holy Cross, who is the 10th worst team in the country, according to Ken Pom. They were handled by Rutgers, and they gave up 71 to Rutgers, which is hard to do. And then a week ago, the controversial finish where Georgetown had TCU, the 3 at the buzzer where Emmanuel Miller stepped out of bounds, but it wasn't reviewable, banked it home. TCU escaped DC with a win. Syracuse is a 1.5 or 2-point favorite. I like the Cuse today on the road as a short favorite. Lay the 1.5, lay the $1.20 money line if it's out there. If you can find $1.20, just lay the $1.20 as opposed to the $1.25 that's out there. But too much offense in the end for the Orange in this game. And Georgetown's defense is 310th in the country, according to Ken Pom. I don't need those numbers to watch them and know that their defense stinks. So I expect Syracuse to be able to put up a bunch of points. The total's interesting and as well, 151.5 behind us. There is some 150.5 in the market. I don't mind going over that as well as you can find the best number just because, again, Syracuse still getting better, but still working through learning a whole new defensive scheme. And as I said, Georgetown's defense is brutal.
I like it. I like that over a lot. There is my dad, Kenny White, he tweeted out this week about the offense of college basketball and how we've seen an up from last year. The average points are 146 so far this season, as opposed to last year at this time, 141.4. So if you can find some totals you like, lean into that over, I think it's a great time to jump in on that. So bad defenses, Syracuse getting used to the new system. I like it. I agree.
I will say this. Well, plenty of college basketball to get through today. And throughout these Saturday shows now, mostly college basketball centric. Alex, we'll have some hockey as well later in the show. And we're going to take a quick break because our guy Vinny Magliulo is going to join us in a few minutes. Sports by the Books, the show here at the South Point studio. See you in a few moments.
South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most popular slot and video poker machines. We have penny slots, including the popular Buffalo games, and real machines like Wheel of Fortune, Triple Sevens, and Megabucks. If you prefer video poker, try Deuces Wild, Double Double Bonus, or a variety of multi-denomination games. Or try your hand at one of the most popular casino table games in the world, Blackjack. Don't let the game intimidate you. Blackjack, also known as 21, is both easy and fun. And our dealers are always happy to assist. And the best part? Blackjack always pays 3 to 2. Next, check out the roulette tables. Roulette is one of the easiest casino games to learn, and so much fun to play. It's a favorite of both beginners and seasoned players. In addition to blackjack and roulette, our casino pit features over 60 popular table games like Baccarat, Pai-Gow Poker, 3-Card Poker, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, and Mississippi Stud. So get out of your room and come join in the fun.
Welcome back in. Sports by the Book is the show. I'm Jeff Parles. Happy to be with you. Alex White alongside. Vinny will be with us momentarily. We'll get him the Jimmy Vaccaro hockey shift. Also, yep. Vinny's going to have to hand me my sheet that I left over there, which very, very smart of me to do that. Only check marks of what games we're talking about. No, you don't bother, Alex. I'm good. I got my notes. My notes are in here, and my notes are there. So we're good to go.
I have no doubt you've got a lot up there.
So let's go back to college hoops. A few games at 9 a.m. Pacific. I want to bring up Cal and Butler first because this game has been bet. Cal has taken the money. Butler opened 9 overnight. Down to 8 behind us. There's 8.5 in the market. There's 1.9, but it doesn't look like it's available in Nevada. So this can happen when you're betting college basketball. And Alex, you and I had this discussion the first 2 weeks of college basketball. In the past there'd only be hopping in on overnights when it was clear, hey, this number's way off.
Right.
That would be the only time that I hopped in. This was an example last night where I didn't hop in overnight, and I wish I did. Because now at 8, it's tough to justify the Cal bet. 8.5, maybe. 9 was the number I liked it at. I liked it. 9 was a play. This is more just, I don't think Butler, who right now has shown, look, they have 2 losses on the year. They lost to Michigan State in East Lansing. Okay, nothing wrong with that. And they lost to Florida Atlantic in Orlando at Disney World. Florida Atlantic's really good.
Yeah.
So those 2 losses there's nothing wrong with those losses. They beat Penn State. They beat Texas Tech last week. This is a reasonable team. I just don't think they should be this big of a favorite against a Cal team. Now look, Mark Manson inherited a mess. This Cal team was awful the last few years. They're coming off a really nice win a week ago against the Broncos of Santa Clara. Beat them by 15. Santa Clara is a good basketball team. They already beat Oregon. They beat Stanford, but Cal beat them by 15. So it feels like this Cal team is going in the right direction, even though the record may not say it. I liked it at 9. 8.5, maybe I would go a half unit. Parse the unit size down, but at 8, it's tougher for me to even say, hey, put a half unit on it.
I like the breakdown here with these two, and especially you talking about jumping in the night before and getting the good number. Nothing jumped out to me in this one. As you mentioned, Butler had 2 losses. Their last loss was on November 23rd. So been playing very good. Penn State, Boise State, Texas Tech, as you mentioned, all 3 wins, and Buffalo going into this one. So nothing for me here either.
Let's go to multiple shades of orange in Knoxville today. Illinois on the road at Thompson Bowling to take on the Volunteers. Really fun, good non-con matchup here today. Good test here for Illinois. This is really, I don't even want to say it's an East Coast swing, but it's east of Champaign. So they went to Rutgers last Saturday. They won handily at the Rack. Then they played FAU in the Jimmy V Classic earlier this week at Madison Square Garden. A wild pace game, 75 possessions, 98-89 win over a good Owls team, as we mentioned before. Now on the road to Tennessee. Tennessee had the 3 straight losses to the elite teams they played on their schedule, Purdue and Kansas in Honolulu at the Valley Invitational this year, and then went to North Carolina. All I can tell you is, Alex, if you told me before the game that Tennessee was going to put 92 on North Carolina, I would have lost my life savings because I would have said, everything I got on Tennessee, and they lost that game. They gave them 100. You don't see that Tennessee defense get exploited like North Carolina did a little over a week ago. The Vols did have a bounce back against the Colonials, a nice 21-point win against George Mason, a top 100 Ken Palm team at Thompson Bowling earlier this week. But we're back to 7. This was at 6.5 when we came in the studio. Now back to 7 on the Illini. I like that. I'll take a whole 7 with Illinois. If Tennessee comes out and beats me, they have a big-time defensive effort, and Illinois struggles to shoot after a big-time shooting game against FAU. That natural regression happens, so be it. I just think this is too many points with 2 top 25 caliber teams. I'll take 7 when you're giving me that with the Illini, and if the Vols beat me, so be it.
9 a.m. start time, Pacific time. I'm excited to watch this one right after the show. Illinois, they're only lost to Marquette, who's a really good team.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, this should be a really good matchup. Nothing jumped out to me, though, side or total to bet in this one.
Yeah, 7-point loss to Marquette back on November the 14th. All right, one more game at this 9 a.m. Pacific slot before we bring our guy Vincenzo on. This is at Wells Fargo Center in Philly. It's not at the Palestra, which I'm a little surprised that Calipari didn't want this game at the Palestra for his Kentucky Wildcats. The Cats are 14-point favorites behind us, which is actually second market high. There's a 14.5 out there, but mostly 13.5 in the market on this one on Penn and Kentucky. The Cats had that loss last weekend to UNC Wilmington at Rupp Arena. Their other loss, of course, was in the Champions Classic in Chicago against Kansas. Nothing wrong with that loss. You know, this feels like a scenario where you're getting that many points with a Penn team that I'm a little surprised they're 191 in Ken Palm. I feel I've watched them 2 more times than I would have expected so far this year. They beat Villanova earlier in the year. Their 3 of their 4 losses are in overtime. So just flip the results of that, and we're looking at a team that, I mean, you get the luck there. They're 9-1 with their only loss being a Big 5 game against St. Joe's on the road in St. Joe's building. If Kentucky had a game in between that lost to UNC Wilmington and this one, it would be a take on the Quakers. I just can't get there because of what we saw last from Kentucky, where this just feels like, all right, even though the Quakers are well coached, even though they are efficient on the offensive side of the ball, that defense is 303rd according to Ken Palm. They will get exploited today by Kentucky, and this is a nice bounce back for the Cats. So no play for me, but it is a lot of points to lay in a road game.
I'm glad we talked about this, and I'm glad you pointed out all the facts that you did, because I was looking at Penn here to take that 14. I thought it was a little bit too many points, but they haven't played too tough of a schedule, right? St. Joseph's and Villanova were 2 of their better teams that they faced, and that was a little early on in the season. So I'm going to stay off of it. We'll see what Kentucky does here for a bounce back.
Kentucky, 14-point favorites against Penn. We can bring Vinny on right now if Vinny's laptop is ready to roll here on a Saturday morning. I will bring this up real quick. No, that's mine. I just forgot to bring it over there, Vinny. Pulled an airhead on that one.
We're getting used to it. We had a quick
the quick
shift.
changeover with
Yep.
Yeah, with Race Day Las Vegas preceding us today with Ralph Sirocco and company.
Yes.
Now 5 days a week, Wednesday through Sunday here on the studios page. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, what are you doing already? Just hit it. It's free. If it's free, it's for me, right? I just hit the button. You get all of our great content here at the South Point Studio. Race Day Las Vegas, the newest edition coming this week. Punchlines with Frank Nicotero, noon Pacific, Monday through Friday, and then, of course, our show 5 days a week, Thursday through Monday. I do want to bring this up real quick, Vinny.
Yes.
There was some big transfer portal news that came down right as the show began. Dylan Gabriel, keeping it with the school that begins with the letter O. He's going up to the Pacific Northwest. He'll be a Duck next year. So he'll go from Bo Nix, who's in New York tonight, probably going to finish second in the Heisman voting behind Jaden Daniels. Mm-hmm. And they're going to replace him with Dylan Gabriel, who I thought he had a good year at Oklahoma. I thought he had his issues at times. The inclement weather game in Kansas, the fact that he didn't play well, and that alarms me a little bit with going up to play in Oregon.
I was going to say, is weather ever an issue?
Yeah, that alarms me a little bit. But just look. We won't have Heisman odds for next year for probably about a month, I would say. In most
it's going to be longer than that. I think.
No,
only because of this transfer.
Some of the books I know will rush to get them up. Which may be
fine.
good.
I mean, that's a choice. I think rushing
exactly.
you're going to look. The classic example for us was putting up the games of the year later because of the transfer portal and how many late transfers there were. So
I will say Dylan Gabriel is probably going to be one of your three, regardless of when the odds are up, one of your three Heisman favorites going into next year. Now going to Oregon. The Big Ten.
The Big
Oregon,
20.
The Big 10. Yes, the Big. You know what? They should just call it the Big 10 times 2.
By the way, I think 2 days ago, about a dozen players at Florida. Florida's had a pretty significant exodus so far.
Well, look.
University of Florida.
Sunbelt Billy. Sunbelt Billy might be on his way out after this year, Vinny.
It bears watching. I mean, and this is, we were chatting yesterday, right, Jeff, on Football Friday with Chris Andrews. I mean, the transfer portal combined with the NIL is basically free agency in college sports now, and that's fine. I mean, that's free enterprise, right? But you've really got to pay attention to it from on both sides of the counter, and that's what we've had to learn to do, particularly in the last couple of years. Right, Alex? I mean, you're watching it very closely as well.
Yep. You definitely have to stay on top of it and make your adjustments.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Vinny, before we get to Army-Navy, the in-season tournament, and a lot of college hoops, good games that we already touched on a few, the FCS playoffs. You, me, and Chris talked about this yesterday.
Yep.
Montana survives in overtime last night against the Paladins.
Game.
What?
Great game.
Great game last night. Easy cover for the Dins in that one against Montana. Now today, you have 3 games. Actually, it looks like the folks just bet Villanova
here.
They did,
yeah.
Down to 20.5 against South Dakota State. North Dakota State's a 7-point favorite on the road. I'm already in on South Dakota plus the 7. As I said I would be yesterday on the show, Vinny, and now the Vandals, 3.5. So actually, the Great Danes have taken some money early this morning.
You know, I've got to tell you that during the regular season, when we put these games up on going into the weekend, the general public really doesn't get as involved. Alex gets involved in these games, it's because everybody, for the most part, is very focused on the regular board, we'll call it, right? The regular rotation, but professional bettors really, and give us some good insight as to what they like and everything, and they wait for these games because these games during the regular season will garner more professional money. 90% of the action on them will be professional money during the regular season. Now, and you remember yesterday, Chris brought up a great point. So the rodeo is here in town for the next 10 days, right? Or next week and a half, it's already started. There's a lot of folks here that are from these areas, of these schools, particularly, Montana, right? South Dakota State, North Dakota State, Idaho, South Dakota. So they love, and they know people, and they follow these schools on a regular basis. And so we've got more of a mix of clientele now betting into these games. So you mentioned it, South Dakota State today, 3 touchdowns against Villanova. That total's come way down too, by the way. If you noticed, we had I think 51 on that total, and now that total is down to 46.
Well, as you know, when the Jackrabbits and the Villanova Wildcats do battle, you got to throw out the record books, Vinny.
A defensive battle.
I will say this: there's a reason that total has crashed.
But weather's
30-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, weather's definitely
that total
a factor.
And Vinny, the three of us have had this discussion all year. Forget the snow, forget the rain, unless if it's a blizzard or a hurricane. The wind is what matters. And of course, when it's a blizzard or a hurricane, that wind is going to be high anyway.
Yeah, it's that's the big factor there. So you've got those kind of gusts there, and I think the weather is kind of working. I think we're gonna have weather today and tomorrow. I mean, we get to the NFL card. I mean, there'll be
we will.
Some weather.
That I-95 corridor is not going to be a fun place to be tomorrow.
It'll be nice to be in the South or out here in the West. North Dakota State holding steady as 7-point favorites. That total down to 48.5, and then we've got Idaho. Money showing for Albany, as you mentioned, Jeff.
The Great Danes.
Yep, down to 4.5 off the 6 opener.
That's quite the trip. There are a lot of fun trips this week in that FCS.
Yeah.
I mean Furman going from South Carolina to Missoula, Villanova all the way out to South Dakota, Albany to which is that Moscow, Idaho, where
University of Idaho?
University of Idaho is? Right?
I think it is. Yeah.
I think that sounds right. I think that sounds right. Sean, is that right? Yeah, I think that it is Moscow.
Let's get
Idaho.
that.
Yeah, we got
confirmed.
it. We got it confirmed. So yeah, those are some wild
trips. Moscow, Russia.
Well, you know what? It might as well be to the kids from Albany, right, Vinny?
Although it's a little chilly up in Albany, right?
I'd say so. I'd say so. I mean, you're in the stretch of the year now in upstate New York where you don't see the sun for 3 months.
I had buddies that went to school up there in Albany, Siena. I was like, "What are you? It's crazy. What are you doing? It's not cold enough down here in the city."
Yeah, all that Ithaca, all those fun ones.
Cortland.
SUNY Cortland. Yeah, there are a lot of fun
I had a buddy of
ones
mine go to Plattsburgh.
Yeah, that's essentially Canada.
Which I was going to say, you're on the thruway, and I remember seeing the sun. Anyway, I'll tell you. Long story short, there was a wager involved that my buddy Kev Gallagher and I went up to see him. Anyhow, we went up there. The next thing I remember seeing, it's Plattsburgh. Where is this place? I saw a sign. Montreal, next 4 exits.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing up here?
Yeah, no, Plattsburgh, Oneonta as well. I see
most snow I've ever seen.
Beyond cold, Alex. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Beyond cold in that neck of the woods.
At an Air Force base, there's an Air Force base up there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how much snow there was. You could barely see the top of the tails of the B-52s.
Yeah, that's not what you want.
Yeah.
That's not what you want.
Definitely made my decision quite easy as to college.
So let's do some college hoops here, Vinny.
Yeah.
How about this one? Speaking of Canada, how about 2 games in Toronto?
Yeah.
The Purdue Boilermakers and Alabama. A good game there. They're playing at the Marlies Arena today, Vinny. See, we got a Toronto Marlies mentioned, so that's all that matters of the AHL. Purdue 6, total 160.5. You know, Vinny, Alex, and I were talking before the show about this game, and Alex's first question to me was, this total too high? And my answer to that is, I'm not betting it. But when Alabama's involved, and if the Tide are making their shots, there may not be a such thing as a total being too high.
Yeah, that's they definitely like the perimeter, to Alex's point. And if they're dropping, which, let's face it, Northwestern, they were dropping against Purdue last week in Purdue's first loss, right? So, but this game hasn't moved. I mean, it's pretty good two-way action on this game. There's been a lot of action this morning, especially on totals. I mean, you're watching your screen. Oh, yeah. Your screens light up with the totals. But this one has held steady. Purdue still one of the top teams. But Alabama playing well, and again, if they go as their perimeter game goes, I mean, they love to get up and down the court. They love to put the ball up from the perimeter, and if they're making them, and Purdue, let's face it, Purdue can shoot too. They're not adverse. It's not just about the inside game with the big man.
Right, yeah, the two of the top 5 offenses in the country, and then Purdue does play better defense, 8th best defense according to Ken Palm. So I did lean to the over here with these two going head to head. I'm excited to watch this one. Did you have a play on it?
I like Purdue. I just don't see Bama being able to slow Edey down enough. Now, the kicker with this, and this is always the case with Alabama, and Vinny mentioned it, if their threes are falling, we've seen it through this Nate Oates era. A few years ago, I forget who they lost to the game before, but they lost to Iona. Now, granted, Rick Pitino was still coaching Iona at that point, so that was a good
Another
Iona
team that wasn't averse to putting the ball up.
Right, and they went after losing that game. They went to Seattle, and they beat Gonzaga, and they put 91 on them. The following game, they put 83 on Houston, which Houston doesn't give up points with Kelvin Sampson coaching that team. So when they're right, and that was, by the way, that wasn't even the 1 overall seed team from a year ago. That was 2 years ago when they were a middling team at that point. Right now, they're hitting 41% of their threes. If they are around that number today, this game's flying over, and I might be in a little bit of trouble covering a 6 with Purdue. But I just think in the end, the defense of Purdue wins out here, even though Purdue struggled to cover the perimeter against Northwestern. But Vinny, as you
figure
know,
they make some adjustments, right, to their defense.
Well, and also as you know, with those early December conference games, we've seen it since these conference games are starting to show up more early in the season. We get some wacky results in December in conference games.
Well, if you recall last year, Northwestern as well, right? They gave
Northwestern beat them last year in Evanston too.
So sometimes it's about matchups too, right? And so Bowie just
Bowie.
You gotta love
our
him.
guy,
one of the great names of the year in college. But I do have. Obviously Purdue gets a lot of publicity because they're so highly not only ranked but also rated. But I've got Alabama in my top 20 from a power rating standpoint as well. So this is a good club. This is a good game, and I love these. I love these matchups early in the year. We certainly and again it's a different game with. Than football. You'd love to have some of these earlier in the season too, right? And interconference games. But when we can get them in basketball now, it really is a bit of a preview to what we're going to see in March, right, Alex? So, it really teams, there'll be a lot of adjustments between now and the big dance, but still great for business and fun to book.
Let's go to some other games here in college hoops, Vinny, and I want to go to another game in Atlanta, Indiana. Yeah, I was stunned at how big of an underdog Indiana was earlier in the week at Michigan. Indiana goes there, wins outright as nearly the same underdog they are today against Auburn. Now, yes, it is a neutral site. It's Atlanta. It's an easy drive for the Auburn fans. It's 7. I did take a piece of the Hoosiers getting those points. But again, Auburn, not quite the same as Alabama offensively. But again, if they're making their shots, the Tigers are a clear top 25 team. They're only lost. Now, granted, last time we saw them, why did they play a road game at Appalachian State? Why would Bruce Pearl have scheduled that game? They lost that game outright to the Mountaineers. And their only other loss is the Baylor game earlier in the year in South Dakota.
I'm trying to remember, is it, a lot of times, Jeff, when you see those types of games, there's coaching relationships involved too, maybe
Dustin
previous
Kearns?
staff. I don't know if that was the case there or it was just
Dustin
a
Kearns
matter of filling a spot in between games, but coaches don't want to go too long without games, right? Especially getting close to two conference games or a game like this, which is a major, interconference there's a variety of reasons. And, but look, But now in this game too, there's another game really hasn't moved.
Yep, hasn't moved.
This number's sitting right at 7, and exactly where we opened it. The total hasn't moved either at 145.5. Probably value there with the points with Indiana, Alex.
I like it. I like the dog here in this one. They've played a tough schedule. Connecticut being one of their toughest teams, and their only loss. So I think they can hang in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Indiana's had a weird year so far because you look at the way it started. They are 7-1. Ken Pom has them at 65, which is perennially bubbly right now. But they had that start at the beginning of the year where they won, but they struggled to beat Florida Gulf Coast. They struggled to beat Army, who was a bottom 20 team in Ken Pom. Wright State didn't have their 2 best players in that game. They only won by 9 in that one, and which was, if you had the early number on Indiana, the most vicious beat that you could have taken this year.
Yeah.
But they've gotten better the last few times out. A really nice win against a good Harvard team in Indianapolis, beating Maryland by 12, and then that road win in Ann Arbor earlier in the week against Michigan.
I think they're still trying to really, and a lot of teams are. Look, it's still so early in the season. Teams are trying to find, rhythm, rotation. Yeah. You talk about, we talk a lot about the transfer portal in college football. It's the same. It's college basketball it's the same situation. I mean, there's even more because there's so many more teams, right? So when you've got more than double the amount of Division I basketball programs, there is so much movement. You've got coaching movement and thing as well. So with that, this particular time of the year where there is some change, then you've got teams just really looking to get into that rhythm. Rotations, coaches, player rotations and things like that. So not unusual, but that's why, particularly early in the season, points are pretty valuable, and you'll see pros like Alex really look to get like we're talking about now with Indiana, but +7 here in a game. Not saying that they're going to win or that they're going to cover. But that's where the value is, as opposed to laying it in this particular matchup.
You give me a lot of credit, Vinny, and I appreciate it. But I gotta give Jeff a little credit because I think he's got the college basketball. He's ahead of me, but I'm
and he's also a broadcaster. By the way, nice job last
Appreciate
night
it, Vinny.
on the G League.
All I'm going to tell you is, because that was the first game I've done in a long time. Boy, the pace of that game was so.
Well, you kept up well, my friend.
I had no choice.
And I had it on my phone because on my other TVs I had other games on and everything. And then I'm walking around the house and my wife says, "What is that? Who is that? Jeff?" As a matter of fact, it is. Yes.
You know what, Alex? I'm going to do it here. DePaul in Louisville.
Here we go.
Okay.
Now, if this was 1986,
it'd be great. It'd be great, but. It's not anymore.
No.
DePaul. Look, I'm a little stunned at how bad this DePaul team is. Now, I will say
they bet them today. They laid the one. They won in 1.5.
Vinny, I got to give one of my good friends, John Saltzman, credit here because he warned me before the year, texting me going into that first game against IPFW, like, hey, whatever you got, take everything on the IPFW. DePaul's the worst Power 5+6 I've ever seen.
Oof.
And he's been right so far this year. Yeah. But as you said, they're betting DePaul today. And look, I know Louisville's a disaster.
Yeah.
But they're better than this DePaul. I'm going to take Louisville. If DePaul beats me, Vinny, I've bet against DePaul every game this year, and I've only lost in the South Dakota game.
I think there are teams that you're going to be able to follow and not necessarily meaning that in a support role. Right. It's a fade role as well. But if you like them that much, particularly with this game being as close as it is, you're better off betting them on the money line. Don't lay 110 and take the 2.
No, I'm gonna outright it.
Take them on the money line.
I mean, look,
and
if you
take the plus price, right?
And there's no home court advantage at Wintrust for DePaul.
No,
not quite.
I mean, yeah. So, but that's why you look at this schedule, right, up and down, and then of course we got a sheet full of added games as well. So there's a lot to choose from. And again, this is where you see numbers, especially totals. They move very quickly, and I'm not talking about half-point increments. I'm talking about at least a point and a half, because there's a lot of respected opinions betting the college baskets.
I want to get you one last game before we let you get out of here. I can't let you go out. Let you go out on DePaul Louisville. I can't let that happen.
Thank you.
Arizona. That's a little better than that game I just mentioned. This is a really interesting matchup at the McHale Center in Tucson. They welcome in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Who's playing better?
They're playing. Wisconsin is playing some great basketball right now. After a 1-2 start, they've rattled off 6 straight, and they've beaten a bunch of high-quality opponents along the way. They beat Virginia. They beat Marquette. They went on the road and really hammered Michigan State earlier in the week in East Lansing, winning by 13 as an underdog in that game. Now they go to the McHale Center. Arizona, we know we can't look at the polls for making point spreads. We know that. But this number feels right that you have on this one.
I have it right there. I have this game 9-10. I've got Arizona as my top-rated team.
Yeah, I think at this
in my power rating.
At this point, and by the way, Arizona. So I got to give a lot of these teams credit. They are going out and scheduling great non-con schedules now, especially these high-end teams. Because look, in order to get a 1 or a 2 seed, you got to go out, schedule these games, win a good collection of them. Arizona this year, they beat Duke in Cameron Indoor. They beat Michigan State in that game in Palm Springs on Thanksgiving. Now they have this one at home. Then they go play Purdue in Indianapolis next Saturday. They play Alabama in Phoenix the week after that. And then they come here to Vegas to play Florida Atlantic on the Saturday before Christmas. This is an unbelievable stretch for a team that you already have power rated number 1 in the country. You get through this stretch 3-1. There's really no shadow of a doubt of who should be power rated number 1 in the country, and it should be the Arizona Wildcats.
I like their game. I like their philosophy of going out and playing as difficult a schedule as early as possible. You know, Tom Izzo did that for a long time in the last 15 years or so. With Michigan State, and I think other teams have noticed it. And it's not just the preseason tournaments, the high-profile tournaments at the Garden in Los Angeles. And I think if you want to know about your team and get them not only conference ready but tournament tested. There are more coaches, and I give them credit for this, tournament testing their team earlier.
Oh yeah,
and I think that's important because they're going to be on the road. They're going to be away from home. And when it comes to the tournament, when it comes to the conference tournaments, I mean, sure, their fans travel and everything. We know that that they'll be here, but the thing about it for that particular conference tournament, this is a good ball club. Good guard play. They have some size. Good free throw shooting team, especially at the end. If you watch that Duke game.
They made their free throws.
They made their free throws down the stretch, and I've got to tell you, this another team that's very much in sync and bears keeping an eye on. I'm not saying certainly that they're going to slip up along the way, and there'll be a stretch where and of course you hope that they stay healthy and everything. But I like the game by the Wildcats. Yeah,
and very well rounded, 8th quickest, but then 5th best defense in the country. So they're good on both sides of the ball. 13th offensively, 5th best. Offensive rebounds. So I like that there. I lean to laying the points here with the Wildcats, but 9.5 is a lot
hasn't
of
moved.
points.
We've opened at 9.5, so it's a two-way action right now. But I think there'll be some support though for the Cats here.
I think the number's right personally. This was one of those like, you know what, I'm going to just stay out of this. See if Wisconsin gets out early. Maybe take lay a lower number with Arizona in game, or. Yeah. If Arizona gets out big, maybe come back with a bloated number on Wisconsin the other way. The total in-game spot for that one. All right, Vinny, we kept you long enough. We'll let you go back to work.
I'm going to go back to work now.
We didn't want the Holy War?
BYU
and Utah?
BYU and Utah.
Yeah,
By the way, how good?
My brain totally didn't work there, Alex.
I will tell you this. The thing, I think a lot of folks are surprised by BYU.
I am.
Performance
I can tell you
this year.
I am.
They've taken people by surprise. Now, the thing about BYU is, and by the way, that number 3.5 and holding steady. The total at 152 also holding steady right now. I think what we have to remember about BYU is they're an older team too. Now you say that in football and everything, but the thing is, a lot of times BYU matchups. Now this is a rivalry too, right? I mean, so there's a lot of emotion in this game and certainly recruiting implications and things like that. But when you watch BYU, You've got a lot of times men against boys. It's 22, 23, 24. A lot of the guys on BYU have gone on missions and they're come back bigger, stronger, and so. But this is a team I think that's really. It certainly surprised me. I thought they would be good. They're better than I thought they would be.
Where do you have them rated?
I've got them in BYU top. I've got them in my top 12.
Top 12. Okay, and
power
you've
rating
had
standpoint.
to
I've had to
adjust
really
even.
adjust them. I've bumped them right now, and again, the bumps in college hoops are more substantial, I'll call it, than let's say in college football early on, right? But they've earned it. I mean, I've got them right in my top 12. I've bumped them by 4 points already in my power ratings.
I like the Utes. I like the Utes outright.
Right. Okay.
Another
money line play by the.
This BYU. And again, I respect Ken Palm. Obviously, you guys behind the counter respect him a lot too. BYU to me, I understand how you get the formula. They're top 12 in both offense and defensive efficiency. They're ranked 6th. They ain't the 6th best team in the country. There's no chance of that being the case.
My
yeah.
Rankings, polls, it's a different story.
There's no chance. They're close. By the end of the year, I would be surprised if they're 36 in the country by the end of the year. And as you mentioned, humongous rivalry game.
Yeah.
That Huntsman Center, when it is jammed, is a really nice home court advantage.
Great venue.
For the Utes.
Mm-hmm.
And this Utah team is vastly improved. Their only losses, all right, you lost on a neutral to Houston. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You lost on a neutral to St. John's. That loss will look a lot better as the year goes along as Pitino gets that Red Storm team better.
Right, particularly because they're in that conference too, right? So, yeah.
They won at St. Mary's, even though the Gales are down. That's still a hard place to win in Moraga. Mm-hmm. I just think this is a good spot for Utah to find a way to get it done at home. I'll just take the $1.45 rather than the 3.5.
Again, it's that close, and if you like them that much with the 3.5, and you think they can win the game, then sure. I mean, no question.
Absolutely.
BYU beat SDSU early in the year, but would you say this is their biggest test?
Solely because it's a road rivalry game.
Yeah.
Because they drew San Diego State at the Marriott Center, and that's another home court advantage that doesn't get to do with what it's supposed to be. That is a great home court BYU has at home in Provo.
And I give these again. I think it's better for teams and team. Really, when you think about it, a lot of these big schools, the games we're talking about, they've really taken a page out of some smaller schools. So, for instance, Northeastern, Texas Southern, these schools, they go all over the country pre-conference play, and they'll play anybody. We saw a couple of years ago, I think Texas Southern went up to Eugene and beat Oregon at Oregon. So they want to get conference ready, and so I think a lot of coaches started to look at that and say, "Listen, what we need to do this too, right? I mean, we need to, to get better games." Along the way, and not only before, but even during the season, we'll see this. And don't wait until March to see because you also learn a lot about your team and what you need to work on to get ready for the tournament.
Vinny, pleasure as always.
Thank you, Vinny.
Carry on.
We'll keep it rolling for the last few minutes here, Alex. I just want to touch Oklahoma and Arkansas. This one's at OKC today. A great start to the year. With a seat, I don't want to say it was hot, but with a bad year this year, it might have gotten uncomfortable for Porter Moser in Norman. But the Sooners off to 8-0 start. Now, granted, they haven't really played anyone other than USC. That was a good win on a neutral. That was in San Diego earlier in the year. They beat Providence by 21. I don't think that Friar team is as good as people think. Now they play it's a home game for Oklahoma and OKC. Now, Arkansas will have a lot of fans there. I actually like Oklahoma in this game, laying the 4. I don't know if it gets me all the way there to make it a full unit play, but the Sooners, to me, their offense look significantly improved from what it's been the last few years. And defensively, Mosier's always had good defensive teams going back to Loyola. They're 13th in Ken Palm. I like laying the 4 here with OU.
Arkansas has been done pretty well. They did beat Duke.
They beat Duke, yep.
And 6-3 doesn't seem that impressive, but I thought the number was just right. I didn't have a strong opinion on either side here.
TCU Clemson. I just want to bring this up because Jim Root liked Clemson earlier in the week on with us. This opened a pick overnight, and they've just been pouring it on TCU in the market up to 2. So Alex and I will be following our guy Jim Root and taking a money line price on the Clemson Tigers today against TCU. That game north of the border in Toronto. All right, the border war. KU hosting Mizzou. Last 2 years, Kansas has just obliterated the Tigers in the last 2 matchups in this series. Kansas opened 14 here at the South Point. It's down to 12.5, which is actually market low. It's mostly 13.5 right now. I liked it at 14. I definitely like it at 12.5 with laying it with the Jayhawks here against Mizzou. I am very concerned here, Alex, more so than anything. Now, KU has depth issues. That's their biggest problem. They really can only roll 6 deep. But Mizzou's defense, I don't know how it's in the top 100 in Ken Palm. Their defense against real teams stinks. And KU has taken full advantage of Mizzou's inability to guard them the last 2 years, and there's absolutely no reason to think that changes today. So I'll going against the alma mater. I'll take KU laying the points, especially the lower 12.5.
I was leaning towards Mizzou here, but I like the over.
Okay.
Over 144, and you kind of just mentioned it. Their defense has given up a lot of points to really good teams, and we have that here with Kansas.
And Mizzou, again, they're playing a slower pace than they played a year ago. Last year, they were one of the faster teams in the country. They're in the bottom 100 in pace this year. So Dennis Gates and company just totally flipping it around from what it was a year ago. Ohio State, Penn State, Bryce Jordan Center. For this one, 5, Ohio State laying it. There's some 4.5 in the market. I do like the Buckeyes. Now, it is a little bit of a tricky spot here for Ohio State on the road in conference play, their first road conference game. Ohio State's only losses to a really good A&M team, and Penn State is coming in just playing some dreadful basketball. They've lost 5 in a row after the 4-0 start. It seems like Mike Rhodes has a little bit more work to do than we expected going into the year, even though Micah Shrewsbury left that program in a pretty solid spot before taking the Notre Dame job. I thought this line should have been 7, personally. So we'll take, especially with some 4.5 in the market now, we'll take the 2.5 point advantage with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I think that's the only way to play this here with the Buckeyes. You're right. Penn State has not looked good as of recently.
St. Mary's and Colorado State. Intriguing game in Fort Collins. Open 5, down to 4. I like the Gales still at 4. I'm going to start going against Colorado State when they're in this favored role. Now, they're going to be in this favored role a lot because they are right now the best team in that conference. But this St. Mary's team, at some point, they're 4-5. At some point, this team has too much talent to look like they've looked so far this year. Their only good win is they beat New Mexico to handle New Mexico by 14 in Moraga in their second game of the year. But they lost at home to Weber State, a game they shouldn't have lost. They lost to Xavier, who I think is pretty average on a neutral. San Diego State beat them by 25 here in Vegas. I'm still stunned at how bad this has looked for Randy Bennett. At some point, I expect this season to flip. It's part of the reason I like St. Mary's here to cover the short number against Colorado State.
You do have to give them credit. I mean, they've had a very tough schedule, so you're going to have some losses through that stretch. But you're right, Colorado State, I think there is a time when you should start going against them. They are 5-0 at home, though, so we'll see how this one plays out. No play for me.
Have to bring this up because it's the big rivalry in my home state. Rutgers travels to Newark to take on Seton Hall at the Rock tonight. Pirates, 3.5 point favorites against Rutgers. Alex, I did nothing with this game. I think the number is right. I will say this on the Rutgers end. I expected this team to be much better than we've seen through the first 8 games. Princeton beat them in Trenton to open the year, and their last 2 times out, Illinois smoked them at the rack, and then they went on the road to a Wake Forest team that I think is a borderline tournament team at best, and the Demon Deacons just put it on them earlier in the week. No play here, but I at some point I expect Rutgers to start looking a little bit better. Seton Hall's done. They beaten all the teams they're better than. They lost all the teams they're worse than. So they're pretty much right on what you would expect right now.
Exactly what I was going to say. So, yeah, it's a tough spot. I think the number's just right as well.
All right, before we get out of here, 2 games at the Dollar Loan Center in Henderson tonight that I want to touch on. Drake and Nevada, a really good game for non-con mid-majors. I like Nevada at 3. It's up to 4.5 in the market. It's one rogue 3. I wonder if that number's still there. If it is, I'm going to take it before we leave the studio here. This Wolfpack team is really good. And as we know with Steve Alford, when Steve Alford is coaching at this level, he is an excellent coach in this league. We saw it in New Mexico. We're now starting to see it now in Nevada. I just think the Pack are a better basketball team. They're top 50 in both offense and defense. This Drake team, again, Tucker DeVries is one of the best players in that conference, if not the best player in the Valley. But this is a difficult matchup here in Henderson, technically. I like the Pack laying the points.
I didn't really look at this one too much. I will have to watch this and get a feel for this Nevada team. But it is a neutral site, but they'll definitely have fans here. There's a lot of UNR fans here in Las Vegas.
Now there's the Nevadan in you with the UNR.
Yes,
that's the Las Vegas special,
yes,
or the Nevada, the state of Nevada
yep.
special, I should say. UNLV's 3 against Loyola Marymount. I actually like the Rebs in that game. I actually expected this to come closer to 6 with UNLV, so we'll lay the 3 with the Rebels. And then one last one, Alex, in Seattle tonight. Gonzaga's 4 on the road. This is actually on campus for UW. Huskies a dog at home. I like Gonzaga tonight. This is not one of Few's better teams. They're good, but they're not at the 1 seed level that we've been seeing year in and year out in recent years. Washington defense scares me in this game, where they're going to want to play fast also, which plays right into Gonzaga's hands. And that 72nd ranked defense, according to Ken Pom, I think is going to give Washington problems tonight. I like Gonzaga will lay the 4 with the Dogs to end the night on the road in Seattle.
And I'm on the over in this one as well. So,
nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, you'll learn. I'm more of a totals better, especially hockey and college basketball. So good luck to you today. Let's cash some tickets.
Let's have a day. Let's have a day. Absolutely. All right. That's all the time we have here on this Saturday. Again, these Saturday shows are going to be heavy on college hoops moving forward. Tomorrow we're back with our regular NFL program 24 hours from now, 9 a.m. Pacific time, as Alex and I will break down the whole NFL card as we are heading to the stretch run in the NFL regular season. Good work behind the glass, Ann and Sean, as always. Shout out to Vinny for being with us as well. For Alex White, I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you tomorrow. Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio.